I guess I can summarize my personal journey with that. I had a hard time decide what to do with my professional life. In 2009, I took my first step into university and I started to study mathematics. And we were 50 people in the program, 7 women, and the rest were men. And it was the kind of men who have smart pants with high waist and a lot of pockets on the legs, and they topped it off with some really ergonomic shoes. They were though really kind and helpful, so I shouldn't joke too much on their behalf. Anyway, after the first day, 10% dropped out, and after a month, only half of us were left. And I lasted 1 semester, and then I realized that mathematics was a bit too abstract for me too, so I decided to change direction, and I studied business administration and took a bachelor within it instead. I still felt, though, that this perspective was still too narrow, so I added a bachelor in economics and statistics. And by then, I started to feel like I was on to something good. But I was fed up with studying, so I applied for my first job after graduation and joined Avanza Bank, the customer support at Avanza, and this was in 2015. And apart from helping the customers, I was also responsible for the customer service statistics. So this was my first role where I worked with data in my role. During my time at Avanza, an analyst position opened up internally, and I applied, but I got rejected. So my ego was really hurt, and I was also restless after working with customer service for more than a year. So, and I didn't know what to do next. So I moved to Mallorca instead to support some acquaintances starting up a supermarket, to learn Spanish and just try to figure out what to do next. And after 6 months, it was in the spring of 2017, I received an email that turned my life around. And it was from a consultant agency. And they stated that I was present in their database and that my profile was a potential match for an IT talent program that they were running. Take the test and see if you're a good fit, it said. And I had never really had an interest in programming or IT in general, but I'm always up for a challenge. So I took the test and I passed. And I went through the process and I got accepted into the program to become a Java developer. And in this program, it was not much of a gender balance. We were 5 women out of 30 students, if I recall correctly. This coding bootcamp went on for 12 weeks or 3 months, and 1 week of these 12 we studied databases and SQL. And SQL is a database query language. And that was the week when I realized that data, that is what I'm supposed to do. But except for putting me on the right career path, this program also gave me the greatest personal gift. I met my 2 best friends in this program, and they are both here today. So I just want to do a quick shout out to Ina and Fanny. I love you guys. I wouldn't be here without you. And this picture actually is from August last year when Ina in the middle got married, and me and Fanny were 2 bridesmaids, and we were also Toastmasters. Great party, best party of my life. Anyway, after the program, I got hired at Boxer TV Access as a commercial analyst, and this was the real starting point for my journey within data and analytics. And since I joined Boxer, I have changed role 5 times, or I've had 5 different roles without applying for a new job once. And the reason this have happened to me is called company mergers. And I will come back to company mergers during this session, so bear with me. But when I joined Boxer, Boxer was in the middle of the merger with another telecom operator called Comhem. And a little more than a year after that, Comhem merged with another telecom operator called Tele2. So this is a little bit messy, but I joined Boxer, Boxer merged with Comhem, Comhem merged with Tele2. And now we are in the beginning of 2019. But I will get back to what this meant for the company and the data-driven journey in a second. But for me personally, this have opened up a lot of doors. And one thing that I really appreciate about the Tele2 culture is that we value to be open and transparent. And that have made me feel comfortable to speak my mind and speak up. And this has been seen and appreciated. And I got my first manager position after just a little more than 2 years since I joined Boxer. So I'm really grateful for the opportunities I have been given, but I'm also really proud actually about how far I have reached so far. Enough about me. Before we dig into the journey itself, I want to talk a little bit about what it means to be data-driven. Or actually, let's take one more step back and talk a little bit about data. What is data? And I would say that data is just the fancy technical term for information. And from information we can gain knowledge, and from knowledge we can make informed decisions. So to be data-driven is as simple as that. It means to utilize the information we have available and base our decisions on it. And in our everyday life, we all leave a trace of data behind us. Everything that we do in this modern and connected society generates a data point. So if we take a practical example, when you woke up this morning, suppose you had received a text message from your mom. You open this text message and you send a reply. And by this point, you have already generated 2 data points for your operator. One that you have read a text and that you have sent a new one. Then you are probably heading to work, so you go to the subway and you scan your card to get through the gates and up to the platform. And by scanning your card, you have generated a data point for the company that operates the system for the gates. And if they look at your historical data, they can probably derive that this is your home station. Then you go on and buy a coffee when you pass your favorite coffee place. And when you buy your coffee then, you generate data for the coffee shop about your coffee preference, and your card holder can probably see that this is your favorite coffee shop since you go there several times a week. And then in the afternoon, you might have a meeting in an unfamiliar part of town. So you enter Google Maps and you browse the location. And now Google knows your current location, where you're heading, and approximately which time you will be there. And I can go on, but I will stop there because I think you get the hang of it, and I think you already are aware of this. But my point is that this trace of data that we all leave behind us is gold for the companies who are fighting for our money and our time. It's pure gold, and that means that what data is really an asset. And I think it's the most valuable asset to any company. And it comes with endless possibilities. So what does it mean to be data-driven in practice? What most people think about when we talk about data or analytics is traditional business intelligence, to source and clean and structure messy data, create reports out of it, and maybe create a simple data visualization, a trend line for seeing the sales trend over time, for example. But data and analytics and to be data-driven includes so much more than that. It means to incorporate data in everything that we do, from the daily decisions that we make to include it in the flows that we have supporting the different customer journeys by automation, optimization, and personalization, and also to include data in our work with strategy and tactics. And I work at Tele2. We are operating in the telecom industry. So what we do is that we deliver connectivity and entertainment to our customers through mobile and fixed networks. So for us and for our customers, reliability is crucial. If our network goes down, it has a big impact on our customers. And since so many functions in the society today is depending on connectivity, it can even be a fatal matter. It can be a question of life and death. So by using streaming real-time data and having automated monitoring and alerts, we will know instantly if we have a failure in the network, and we can see if we have a customer impact. And by combining this network data with customer data, we can also communicate to our customers that we are having an issue right now, we are working on it, and then we can get back to them and tell them when it's fixed. And by using AI and predictive modeling, we can be proactive and we can do maintenance in our network before a component reaches end of life, and by that avoid a negative customer impact. And we have so much possibilities with advanced analytics. We can personalize the customer experience and be more relevant for each customer. And we can create great tools that can support the people in our company. For example, we can create tools for the sales representatives in customer service. And this tool can create recommendations based on the customer profile, what would probably be preferred for this customer. It can also consider what will be most revenue generating for Tele2, and it can also consider the probability of conversion, which offer is most likely to be accepted by the customer. And for a human to take all of these aspects into consideration, it will take a few minutes to come up with the best answer. But if we let this to the machines instead, it will happen in just a second. In our operations, there is a lot of focus on real-time data, and by real-time data I mean event-driven data, so when a data point is created, it's immediately made available for other systems. But to be successful in the future, we also need to learn from the past. And by using historical data and applying statistical analysis on it, we can be smarter and more accurate when we define our strategies. And if we, while we define our strategies, also identify the KPIs, the key performance indicators, that we want to improve with this strategy, it will be much easier to follow the progress and see if we are on the right path and if we are actually seeing the result we are aiming for. And to be data-driven also means incorporating data in your daily work and tasks. So for myself, I have built a dashboard that contains all the data and the KPIs that I need to be on top of in my role. So the first thing that I do every morning is to look into this dashboard. It's part of my daily routine. And since it is part of my daily routine, I'm really familiar with my data and my baselines. So I will instantly know if I have any deviations, and then I can do an analysis and identify if this is something I need to act on or if everything is okay. So by having the data you need at your fingertips, you can make informed decisions really fast. And Tele2's journey to become a data-driven organization started around the time that the merger between Com Hem and Tele2 was effective in the beginning of 2019. And one of the first decisions that was taken was to form the Data and Analytics division. And that decision were bigger than just creating a new division in the company. It was a decision to centralize the data and analytics capabilities. And I don't think that was the intention of the decision, but it was definitely a consequence. And when this decision was made, we entered the first out of 3 phases on our journey, and I would like to call the first phase building the foundation. And the first task this new division needed to take on was to decide on a target architecture and select the tools and components that we needed in our stack so we could support the current use cases we had, but also the probable use cases of the future. And we wanted a platform that was scalable and easy to use. So we started to browse the market for options. We performed some proof of concepts, did the analysis, and decided on the tools that were the best fit for us. And we did the implementation and deployed. And this went really fast. It took around 3 months from that we started to browse the market for options and until we had the environment up and running. So by now we have the platform in place, the core, as these guys are working on. And the next step is to start adding data to the platform. But where to start is not always so easy to decide, especially not when you are a big organization, you have stakeholders in all the corners of the company, and there is so many cases that would create value for the company. Fortunately, we had a quite given starting point, and that was to clean up our own backyard. We had a quite big pile of legacy platforms and applications from both companies, both from Tele2, who had a bunch of applications for data analysis, and same had Comhem. And as all companies, we have to continuously improve efficiency and lower our costs. So to clean up and get rid of all of these excess and legacy applications, we initiated the Data and Analytics Transformation Program, where we started to add the data we needed to the target platform so we could decommission the old ones one by one. We also had some critical use cases coming in from the business side that needed to be resolved. And one example was that we were actually lacking a consolidated view of our customer base after the merger, so we couldn't see the full picture of our customer base. We had the Tele2 customers who lived in one system. We had the Comhem and Boxer customers living in a second, and then we had the Convic customers living in a third. And that's only the consumer segment. Don't get me started on business to business. And to be able to fulfill reporting obligations, both to authorities and third parties, but also to follow up on the execution of the strategies that was part of the business case, we had to provide this consolidated view. So when we had the platform in place, this was the first use case we took on, and that took another 3 months to get in place. So to summarize this first phase, what we did to build the foundation was to centralize the technical capabilities, form the organization and the teams who would operate and develop on the platform, decide on a target architecture and deploy it, and start to add data to get our own transformation going and meeting critical use cases. And while we centralized the technical capabilities during the first phase, we started to decentralize the analytics competence and the usage of the data platform during the second phase. And I would like to call that phase adoption and acceleration. And to decentralize the competence and usage of data, I refer to as self-service. And a self-service culture means that the teams in the organization are able to work with data on our platform on their own. And to have a self-service culture is preferred for two main reasons. And the first one is efficiency. If it is only one or a few teams who have the ability to work hands-on with data, these teams will always become bottlenecks. The second reason, which I think is the main one, is that it is actually the users and the stakeholders who have the knowledge around the business rules and logic that gives context and value to data. It is also them who can take action based on insights we gain from data. So it just makes more sense that they are the one working hands-on with it. And to get closer to this self-service culture, we have spent a lot of time on talking to the users, train them, create documentation, and in general being out in the company and preaching about why to use data, how to use data, and where to find it. Of course, we also continued our own transformation journey, and as much as possible, we have tried to combine our transformation and decommissioning of legacy platforms with meeting new use cases. And one example of this was when we created a new solution for our entertainment team, the team that works with our TV and play services. They had a quite extensive solution since before for analysis of TV viewing. So when we did that migration, we took the opportunity to improve it, but we also added capabilities to cover new use cases that came up when they launched our own play service, Tele2 Play. And the new capability we added, among several, but one was that we created automated offering of the new service to the existing customer base through optimized and personalized targeting. So to summarize the second phase, we put our effort in decentralizing analytics competence and usage through training and dialogue, and we also added a lot of new data to our platform and our data products by combining transformation and meeting new use cases. And this gave us the possibility to keep up to speed in our own transformation, as well as delivering business value. So we have the technical capabilities in place, and we have users who know how to use data and why it is a good thing to use data. And to realize the latter one and to move us from the second to the third phase, something critical happened that helped us move the needle here way faster than what we would have done otherwise. And that was that we got support from the group leadership team, and they got on board on the journey with us. Because if you want to drive change that impacts the way the company is working as a whole, you must have leadership who support that journey and that leads by example and asks the right questions. Otherwise, it will be really hard, and I don't think it is doable, actually. After this turning point, the data-driven culture really took off. We got new stakeholders and new use cases, and we got new use cases from old stakeholders, and we saw a different perspective in these use cases. Historically, it had most been the commercial teams who was interested in data and analytics. But now we started to work more with the other IT and tech teams as well, because they also realized that they could incorporate data in new ways in their work. We can also see an increase in the demand for enriched data and deeper insights. So if we take the commercial teams as example again, they are always interested in the cross-sell potential in the customer base to create value growth. And when they had more data available and their managers starting to ask the right questions, they realized that it might be a good idea to consider the customer experience before we decide who to target with an offer. So if the customer is having a shitty experience right now, maybe we shouldn't push another offer on them, but rather communicate and maybe compensate them for this poor experience. And from the other end, we have the network teams, the teams who operate, maintain, and improve our networks. They started to take commercial parameters into account when they do project plans for network improvement and expansion. Historically, they were only considering traffic on a site when they did the priority, but now they are also considering the customers. How happy are the customers? How much revenue do they generate? And can we see a high risk for churn? So to summarize the third phase, I would say that this is where the magic happens. This is where you break new ground and you can see changed behaviors, and you can take the usage of data and analytics to the next level. So where are Tele2 right now? It's a tricky question. It is not as black and white as I have presented it here. And I would say that we are still in all three phases. It depends on the use case, on the stakeholder, and so on. But if we look into the data, we have around 1,000 unique users on our business intelligence platform each month, and each user consumes data 4 times per day on average. We have over 40 machine learning models implemented in production that supports our different customer journeys and operations. We have tools for real-time analysis and troubleshooting of our networks that also predicts the customer impact if the issue is not resolved and prioritizes the tickets based on that. We are also in the final stages of our own transformation. So far we have closed around 15 applications, and by that reduced our OPEX with 40%. And since we have been executing fast and quite use case oriented, we have put some technical debt on ourselves. So we are continuously addressing that through working in a DevOps manner. We are also continuing the work with our corporate data strategy and working on the next steps to take within the data and analytics area. And in this work, we are fine-tuning our collaboration with the other IT and tech parts of Tele2. and we are also making sure that data is considered and used in our end-to-end enterprise architecture. And of course, this journey has not just been nice and easy. There is always challenge when you drive change. And the challenges you will face will, of course, correlate to the state of the organization when you are on this journey. So for us, the journey have been imprinted by the merger, of course, and I will soon be finished about the merger, but just a few more bullets on it. But when the merger was announced, we made a promise to the market and our shareholders that we were going to save 1 billion over a period of 3 years. This resulted in a business transformation program with the ambition to realize the efficiency and cost synergies that was part of the business case. And for this realization to happen, an extensive IT transformation program started with the purpose to clean up our IT landscape and, for example, move all the customers into the same systems instead of several. And this demands a lot of capacity from the teams working in IT. Another part of the business case was to improve profitability and create stickiness in the customer base by executing the fixed mobile convergence strategy. And this basically means that we sell fixed services on our mobile customers and mobile services on our fixed customers. So aside from the merger and this strategy, we are operating in a tech-heavy industry. And the demand from our customers and the competition landscape is constantly changing, and it is changing fast. So must we, and the offers on our products and services are constantly evolving. So my point is that we have had a lot of things going on in parallel that were all equally important, and they all demanded a lot of capacity. So the challenge this brings to the table is to get commitment from the stakeholders and to get priority from them and from the other development teams that we are depending on to get our hands on the data. Another side effect of bringing two big companies together is that everything changes for the people in the company. The competence and the knowledge are still in the people and it's still in the house, but the challenge they have is that they don't know how to bring it forward. Who should they talk to and who should they collaborate with to make this brilliant idea happen? And when you are taken out of a familiar context and put into a new and unfamiliar one, you tend to focus on what you know and stick to that. And that makes your focus quite narrow. And this creates silos. And in a big organization, it creates a lot of silos. So for us who belongs to the delivering part of the organization, this generates a shattered focus due to this big volume of requirements. And most often these requirements don't consider the end-to-end perspective since the people don't talk to each other. So to summarize the top challenges, we have struggled a bit with getting commitment from stakeholders and have them prioritizing data and analytics from their end. And also to get over these organizational silos, which generates a lot of requirements, which are overlapping and does not always take a holistic and end-to-end perspective. To get over these challenges and to succeed with a data-driven journey in general, you need to have support, buy-in, and sponsorship from senior management. Because to become a data-driven organization means to change the way the company works altogether. And that change needs to come from the top. If the leadership does not see the value and benefits of working with data and prioritizes it, no one will. They need to lead by example and ask the right questions, because then their direct reports will start to ask the right questions and lead by example. And then it will start trickle down, and eventually it will reach all the way down to the floor. And since working with data and analytics is new and unfamiliar for many, it is important to show them the way and support them. So invest in the people, invest in trainings, have documentation available, use familiar contact channels, create a chat channel in the company tool, create a mailbox, have workshops, do open houses, and so on. Just make sure that they can reach out, and keep in mind that a stupid question is better than no question at all. And when this has started to trickle down to the people, it is important to continue leading by example. So find the teams that are committing and have started their journey. Make them role models and share their story as success stories in the work with others. This will both boost the self-esteem of the teams that is already on the right path, and it is always more efficient to show an example rather than talk about hypothetical scenarios. Last but not least, I want to highlight that data and analytics is not and cannot be considered something separate from IT and tech. Most of the data that we use and need comes from the systems used in the business, and the different data products that we create will be used by the same systems. So if data is not considered in the enterprise architecture, you will not be able to bring out the full potential of the data, and it will also impact the data quality. And trust me, if it is one thing that you want, it is a high data quality. Because the insights and the actions that we take based on data will only be as good as the quality of the data that you use. So in short, shit in means shit out. And with that charming quote, I want to thank you so much for your attention, and I open up for questions.
Yeah, could you expand a bit on the team you had, the composition of the team and the size of the team, key skills and competences in the team that you had in this first phase?
The division we created.
Sorry?
In the division we created in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, it has evolved over time, but the current setup, we are around 60 to 70 people within the data and analytics division, and we have one team focusing on the data platform and the different tools and components, keeping them up and running and in a good shape. Also establishing development guidelines so that the other teams and users can easily do their own development. We have a second team called Data R&D who works with, they are focusing on the real-time tools for real-time operations and analysis. Then we have my department who work mainly with data modeling and data visualization. And we have one team focusing on AI and machine learning.
And in that first initial 3 months when you defined the target architecture, was there such a big team? I guess not.
No, we were not as many, and I don't recall how many we were, because we took teams that were existing in Tele2 and teams that were existing in Comhem, and then we put them all together. So it was a mix of pure developers and people coming more from the business side, having more of an analyst competence. But yes, so we were around 50 people. And we didn't have this team structure by then. It was more getting the people together and start executing. And then the organizational setup has evolved over time. But also the competences you mentioned, we do have a lot of data engineers. We have some people more skilled in data warehouse development and data modeling. We have people specialized in data visualization, and then we have data scientists and also what we call machine learning engineers, so data engineers focusing more on machine learning. Yes?
First of all, thank you. Amazing presentation. So,
Thank you.
Took a lot of notes. I mean, now you have all this team together, and how do you kind of, because building the predictive models, etc., are based on the different functions in the business. How do you guys secure? Maybe you mentioned that a little bit, but how do you secure that it's the right predictive models? Or if feel that that is one of the challenges to have a centralized team but still have
Yeah, and when it comes to the machine learning models, we have a specialized team, but they are also collaborating close with the analytics team within the commercial department. So we have a cross-functional team there where half of the team comes from the commercial side and half comes from our side. So I guess that is how they safeguard that this is the right models for these purposes.
and now they are in the same team kind of.
Yeah, it's a cross-functional. So like reporting-wise, they are on different parts, but they collaborate and they work in a Scrum manner and do plannings and so together. Then actually we still have data and analytics competence outside of our division. So it's not like we are the only ones doing it. There are, especially I would say, machine learning models are also built more within the IT and tech teams. But the majority resides with us, I would say. Thank you. Yes.
Can you share with us which platform you picked and why?
We selected a cloud solution. And we have a bunch of tools, but we use AWS, and then we work with both Snowflake and Redshift. And for data visualization, we have Tableau. For machine learning and AI, I am not the best spokesperson. I think we work with SageMaker, but I'm not 100% sure. Yes.
So we're basically in the beginning of this journey, and we get a lot of feedback from the business that like, or maybe the leadership as well. They are a bit scared, like, oh, what if we show this data? Maybe what effects will it have for our business model?
Yeah.
So have you been working with those type of questions as well, or do you have any guidance on how to handle that?
Do you mean that they are kind of doubting, they don't confident about the data and that it's...
They are a bit afraid about the consequences, like what type of consequences might this have, like what type of, I don't know.
that's interesting. Tricky question. Yes, a little bit. I mean, we do see resistance in some areas, but I would say the most resistance, or not resistance, but where we have to work a lot with change is that people want to stick with what they have done. And we come up with new ideas. You can follow these, you can predict your sales in this way or work in that manner. And that is tricky to get them to change the way they work. And I would say that is also something where we have been depending on getting support from senior management, because we come from the side and say, hey, come with us, and they're like, no. So, but if someone comes from the top, it's much easier. But it's a struggle. I have so many hands. Okay.
I just have a question, like, with the data that you get from current users, how do you think about the balance of like current data and data in terms of like trends or like foreseeing the future, and like how do you think about that balance of like current and future kind of development?
Do you mean like real-time data versus historical data, or?
Yeah, like if you base a lot of decisions on data from existing users, how do you then take into consideration what the future might be? Like they might do this now, but like how do you bring in trends or like future data that might not exist yet? Do you understand?
Not fully, but for me that sounds like predictive modeling. Because I mean that to train a model you need to have historical data to train the model and test it. And I guess we never know what will come in the future, but we know what is in the past. So that's the best guess we have. But then of course it's possible to add parameters that you can adjust and see if we add this campaign, how do we think that that will impact the outcome of the sales next month, for example. So I mean, it is possible to create tools for different scenarios. I'm not sure if I really answered the question. Yes.
Kind of coming on that same tune, when you're building models, technically a model is always right. It's just what exactly is the model actually predicting, or what is the model actually telling you? How do you manage the interpretation of the model and its usage once the output is passed from your team to the decision makers?
Well, a lot of the models that we have do some kind of scoring. For example, makes a churn score on a customer. What's the probability of this customer to churn? Or what's the probability of this offer to be purchased by this customer? And these outcomes of these scorings are read back to the data warehouse or the database. So we can store it and use it for visualization, or it can be picked up by other systems and tools. What did that answer the question?
Yeah, like for example, you might, let's say, profitability of customers, because that's a common problem in
Yeah.
business. You build a model that takes in different parameters of the customer, and then you use it to predict potential probability of a customer. Once you give that score to a customer, and then let's say I am in the marketing department and I want to launch a new campaign, and I say, okay, this set of persons are most profitable because they have a score of 10 or what have you. How do you manage that the interpretation of those numbers stays true to the original output or desired use case that was built, that model was built on, so that it doesn't move beyond what was originally built to predict? I'm not sure if I'm explaining. Because
Yeah.
you build a model, like you build it today with these parameters to predict a particular thing.
Yeah.
Over time, that understanding of how it was built may get lost. So you have the data there and you have the historical numbers. How do you make sure that that interpretation stays true when things also change?
Yeah, we do rescoring, so to speak. We don't run these models one time and then that is a static outcome, but we rerun the models reoccurringly, also to be able to see the trend. But so yeah, it's updated, the score. Yes?
What kind of data you're missing that you would like to have on the dashboard?
Oof, a lot of data. Oh, that's a tricky question. I don't know top of mind. I mean, we do have so much data that I don't have the possibility to utilize. I don't know.
And then the second question, what kind of data is the most important for your entertainment product, right? As you mentioned that you basically gather data, you make different options, you kind of cross-sell. Or what kind of inputs you're making that decision? Is it like reading behavior or content I have watched?
There's several parameters, but definitely the viewing and the viewing patterns are central, especially since we are doing a lot of product development, since it's a quite new service, and we want to create a great play service. So the content and what the customers prefer to watch and when they prefer to watch it is, of course, really central. So the viewing, I would say. Yes?
I was wondering if you have all your data in the cloud or you could also have it on-prem.
There are also data on-prem.
Did it took like a lot of effort to make this traditional tech people agree on moving a bit of the like data to the cloud, or was it how was that strategy?
There is a lot of discussions on especially cloud versus on-prem, and we have both kinds to meet different kind of regulations and so on. But there is hard opinions on on-prem versus cloud. I think it's familiar to many. For me, yeah, it's ongoing dialogue, and I think it's hard to find one way actually. I mean, it also depends on the rest of the landscape, the IT landscape, and what's best suitable and the use case. But hot discussions taking place. Okay, I think we are out of time now. I will be in the Tele2 stand if anyone has more questions or just want to talk about data or a company merger maybe. So thank you very much.